Happy 4th of July. Today we are celebrating the birth of a nation. But what is a nation? It's not just land with a flag on it. It's an idea. And in 1776, the American idea was brand new, untested, and the rest of the world thought we were utterly insane. Have you ever thought about this? How do you get thousands of scattered farmers and merchants, people separated by colonies, class, and culture, to risk everything? We're talking their lives, their families, their fortunes, and their future. How do you convince them to stand up to the greatest military power on planet Earth? You can't just send a memo. You have to have an idea that is so powerful it can override everything they know and instill a new way of thinking in their hearts and minds. And we're going to talk about 3 men who did just that. The British had a name for them, and it wasn't the Founding Fathers. This wasn't a name that was endearing. It was a name they gave them that had a mixture of fear and contempt. They were called the Black Robe Regiment. These guys were pastors who had been articulating a theology of freedom for quite some time. And we're going to begin on a night in April 1775 in Lexington, Massachusetts. 3 men are huddled together behind a candle in a church parsonage. John Hancock, Samuel Adams, and their host, the Reverend Jonas Clark. They know British troops are on the march. They know the Redcoats have orders. Seize the rebel munition and capture Hancock and Adams. But what the British Empire doesn't know is Reverend Clark has spent 20 years preparing his town for this exact night. See, Clark wasn't just a preacher. He had been promoting the resistance to tyrants as obedience to God. Today we live in an age of 24/7 news cycles. But could you imagine the sheer gravity of one person's voice holding the fate of a small town? That was Clark. So when Paul Revere shows up pounding on the parsonage door telling him the British are coming, Clark is ready. Hancock and Adams, they turn to him and they ask him this question: will the people of Lexington fight? And I love his reply: I have trained them for this very hour. They will fight, and if need be, die under the shadow of the house of God. Dawn breaks, and one of the deacons in Clark's church, Captain John Parker, gets the militia together. This here is the first organized resistance of the Revolution. And then they hear the drums pounding. They see a wall of redcoats with bayonets gleaming. The British had arrived. An officer screams, "Disperse now in the name of the sovereign king." Then a voice from the militia shouts back, "We recognize no sovereign but God and no king but Jesus." Then you hear it. The shot heard round the world. Gunpowder smokes on the horizon, and by the time the battle is over, 8 men from Clark's flock are lying dead on the grass. Now Clark goes from pastor to battlefield chaplain. He kneels over the dying with his blood-stained hands, looks over the carnage, and says words that will echo throughout history. From this day will be dated the liberty of the world. I think what Jonas Clark reminds us of is that faith demands action. So now let's travel to a small church in Virginia where the action is about to take a dramatic, unforgettable form. It's winter 1776 in the Shenandoah Valley, and that place is buried with snow. There's a pastor standing behind the pulpit. His name is Peter Muhlenberg. He opens his Bible to the book of Ecclesiastes, and he begins to read. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time of war and a time of peace. He then closes the book and continues. There is a time to preach and a time to pray. His voice grows more intense. But there is also a time to fight, and that time has now come. Then Muhlenberg reaches up and he takes off his clerical collar. He continues as his robe slides off his shoulders, revealing underneath the uniform of a colonel in the Continental Army. A collective gasp ripples through the sanctuary. We're talking shock, disbelief. But a fire catches. Muhlenberg strides down the aisle, throws open the church doors, turns to his congregation and says, "Who among you would join me?" And that day, nearly 300 men rose from the pews and enlisted right there on the spot. Today, we argue about faith and politics in tweets and on Facebook, but Muhlenberg made his argument with his entire life. Yet, even the most dramatic call to arms means nothing without the spirit to sustain it for the darkest, most brutal days of the war. So let's go a little further north to the war-torn New Jersey, and there is a man the British called a rebel high priest. His name was James Caldwell. This guy was awesome. He would walk to the pulpit, slam his Bible down, take 2 loaded gleaming pistols and put them right there on his Bible. That may seem a little much, I guess, but the man had seen his church burned. He buried a wife who was shot by a British soldier. A man who has nothing to lose is a man that's hard to beat. His legend had been forged in the fire in the Battle of Springfield in 1780. The American line was about to break. They were out of wadding for their muskets. Panic sets in, but not for Caldwell. He leaps on his horse and he charges through cannon smoke to the nearby Presbyterian church, kicks open the doors. He didn't grab weapons. He grabbed stacks of Isaac Watts hymnals. Then he gallops back to the front line. He hurls the books to the soldiers and says, "Tear out the pages. Give them Watts, boys." And that's exactly what they did. They stuffed the pages of those hymnals in the barrels of their muskets and they fired them into the enemy. Choruses of worship turned into a volley of defiance. The American line held that day and the British fell back. And you know the phrase, giving them the what for? That's where it comes from. Every legend, though, has a cost. Caldwell's wife was already gone before the war was over. He'd also be shot and killed, leaving behind 9 orphan children. And on this July 4th, we remember the Black Robe Regiment. Their sacrifice is the deed to the house that we live in today, a house called America. And that deed is signed in their blood and sealed with the paper of their hymn books. I hope you have a happy and blessed 4th of July. God bless America. I have another episode that'll come out Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock. And it's going to go into the ideas of the revolution and where they come from. We're going to talk about Martin Luther, the Protestant Reformation, the Great Awakening, and how those affected the mindset of not just the leadership, but of the populace. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm about to go shoot some fireworks, and hopefully Sunday, when I get up to preach, I'll have all 10 fingers. God bless you. Happy 4th of July. God bless America.